As you know, the opening of school is in just a few days. It's Wednesday for us when the students will walk through. Most of the teachers, though, have spent days, weeks, and all of their summer months in those classrooms, setting up new bulletin boards, new displays, setting up new learning centers in particular that are very important to us. Our teachers in particular spent 4 days at the end of school, because we don't have Common Core anymore, really looking at our curriculum maps and deciding where are we going, what do we need, what do we not have, comparing to past, and comparing back to the ACT. And we are very much like Bethany. ACT and Aspire is really driving us because the majority of our kids are going college and career, and it really drives that for us. So we looked at that. We feel very confident in the curriculum that we're going to have ready on the first day of school. We will continue to work with the State Department, and I'll come back to that. But the teachers in particular, they're working on a lot of get-acquainted activities and things that are going to help them bond with those young people the first day they walk through the room. So I just want to tell you that I have yet to meet a teacher. Some people think of teachers as, oh, you've got this 180-day job. They don't have a 180-day job, and they certainly don't have an 8-hour job. Their hours, and I always called our building the 7-Eleven back when I was a leader, and actually when I was working there, I was kind of one of them that was the late bird that closed it down, and other people were the early birds that opened it up. But really, most teachers are there somewhere between 6 a.m., 5:30 a.m., and the last one usually goes home somewhere after 11, after the last event is over. So it is a much longer job than the little, quote, 8 to 3, 8 to 4 that we think about. And they work very hard. In fact, I think they often are over-prepared because they know it's so critical and so important to be ready that first day of school. They realize the very critical role that they play in a student's success. Not only do they teach content and skills, which we are very concerned in looking at, but they also guide students to become self-directed learners, lifelong learners, problem solvers, thinkers, good citizens, and good human beings, so that they too someday will sit in this room just like you are. We teach and model character traits such as responsibility, persistence, compassion, empathy, integrity, resilience, and work ethic. And that's just to name a few. Some of you may be familiar with the insightful quote from Dr. Haim Gano. He said, "I've come to the frightening conclusion that I am the decisive element in the classroom. It is my daily mood that makes the weather. As a teacher, I possess tremendous power to make a child's life miserable or joyous. I can be a tool of torture or an instrument of inspiration. I can humiliate or humor or heal. In all situations, it is my response that decides whether a crisis will be escalated or de-escalated, and a child humanized or dehumanized. At the end of the day, what matters most is the teacher that we put into that classroom. As educators, we have the absolute privilege and power to impact lives. It's the chance of a lifetime, and we won't always know when we're making that impact. We may never know, but we always do it anyway." I lead in with this to emphasize the importance of Oklahoma doing what it takes to put the very best and the brightest in front of our children in our classrooms. I'd like to talk just a moment about funding, and first of all, I would like to say thank you to the legislature, because they did put $50 more per pupil into the budget, and that definitely for Deer Creek is $250,000. That meant 4 master's level 10-year teachers. Unfortunately, we haven't received all of that yet because part of that has been put in reserve, so we actually received $38.60, which means it's really funding about 3 teachers in the Deer Creek school system. If we had the per pupil funding of 2008, 2009, and I know you've heard me mention this before, but in Deer Creek, it meant $1.9 million. So I've received right now $192,000, so you can subtract that off. But $1.9 million would have put 29 teachers in the Deer Creek classrooms. My classrooms right now on the pre-K through 3rd grade level with 1017, which I'm old enough to have experienced 1017, we said that we wanted class sizes of 20. We're averaging 24, 25, and 26, which we feel very grateful. But that 29 teachers would have brought my class sizes in the upper levels that are in the 30s, low 30s, and would have brought those other class sizes down to 20, would have brought the high school class sizes down to a more reasonable 25 to 28. So I'm sure that we'll still visit about those numbers and running some of those numbers as we go forward. But to let you know there is still need. There's a great need in that area. We educate, as you mentioned, a lot more students today than we did even back in 2008, 2009. And there's a lot higher expectation for our teachers today than there was in 2008, 2009. And Dr. Barnes, I can go back, and since I'm a little older, I can always allude back just slightly further than Dr. Barnes, but to the school system that I grew up in. The demands are great on our teachers. The total general fund revenue for Deer Creek, using the FY13, because those are the last numbers reported on the state website, so I like to use audited numbers for you, not numbers that I have generated. But using the weighted ADM, our per pupil funding in Deer Creek was $4,108. It is $2,098 less than the state funding provided by the lowest ranking state in 12-13, and that was the state of Utah, which was $6,206. All of that to say, Deer Creek does an incredible job. Deer Creek teachers do an incredible job with the funding that we have and with the class sizes that we have to work with. But I was recently visiting with a friend, and this friend had triplets, and one teaches in Oklahoma and one teaches in Colorado. And it was very sad because the teacher in Colorado makes $25,000 a year. They're triplets. They graduated, they went to work at the same time. She teaches special ed, the other one teaches and coaches and does a variety of things. She makes $25,000 more than the teacher in Oklahoma. I was talking with Mid-Dell, and they just lost a math teacher to Dallas because they can make $22,000 more. Now, they wanted to be in Oklahoma. They wanted to help their parents, but they could not afford to stay here. So our best teachers are still exiting to Colorado, Texas, Kansas, and Arkansas. The applicant pool is low. In filling vacancies, many are doing it right now with long-term subs. I'm grateful to say that's not the case in Deer Creek, but we have experienced those times where you have to use a long-term sub longer than you would like. Many schools are opening with many, many long-term subs. So I would tell you that even though things are better, there's still a funding shortage and there's still a crisis. You can see it in our class size numbers and you can see it in our teacher shortages. Oklahoma's lower per pupil funding does result in a lower teacher pay, which helps fuel our statewide teacher shortage. We are quickly approaching a crisis point in terms of our ability to recruit and retain high quality and effective teachers. Again, some other areas that are pretty critical to school districts are operations and transportation. In transportation last year we received $175,000. It cost me $1.2 million to run transportation for our district. It's a very large rural district. I call it Andy of Mayberry on steroids because we are now 5,300 students. Where we did start out as a B school and then the 2A school, and we are in our last year of 5A. We've already seen a growth of a minimum of 300 students this year, and we believe we will move on into the 6A status as of next year. But our building fund doesn't pay for all of the custodians and the operations. I remember hunting for money because we couldn't flush the toilets at the high school because 2 pumps went out and it was a $10,000 cost. When he talked about bond issues needing to pay for maintenance and deferred operations, it's critical, and that's where I have to come back and really thank the patrons of Deer Creek. They've been very, very good to us, both in finishing some projects and in trying to address our deferred maintenance and even textbooks and just putting chairs in classrooms. So I would tell you the crisis in funding schools in Oklahoma does continue, and we want to work very closely with our legislature to find good ways, the right way to fund education. I would be amiss if I didn't do the huge thank you to the patrons of Deer Creek. In Deer Creek, I've been here, this is my second full year and part of another year, and I've done 2 bond issues in that time. And the last bond issue is putting textbooks in the classroom this year. It's putting desks and chairs in classrooms. It's handling some of the deferred maintenance that we have. It put 2 buses on the road, and I hope to be able to draw down for another 4 shortly. They are also very active volunteers, so where we don't have some of the funds, we do have parents who help us in our libraries and on our playgrounds. And we have the Creek Classic. Please mark your calendars for the first Saturday in March and come run with us. But that is a very important fundraiser to our district. So we are very grateful to the parents and patrons of Deer Creek. We are also very grateful to have a very strong foundation that puts things into the classroom that we cannot afford otherwise. We also have a new foundation in the arts, and they are working very closely with us, and I look forward to telling you just a little bit about what we've done there. We are working very closely, I alluded to it a moment ago, with what are we going to do now that we don't have Common Core pass, and we're going to pass. I hear my bell, but I want to catch just a couple of things, and I will close. We do have some concerns in the rewriting. I do hope that the legislature will really look at letting us get our new leadership both on the career tech level and on the state level into place, because we think that's a very important part of that process. At the same time, your teachers are going to do what they do best, and they're going to teach what needs to be taught. We do also have some concerns with testing. Our state vendor, we have no vendor, and the past state vendor is under investigation. So we have some questions and concerns in that area. We have a lot of interim studies, both in the House and the Senate, and we hope to be very involved. But let me tell you just a final closure, a little bragging on Deer Creek. In 13-14 state team championships, we held the most in the 5A. We had 6 OSSAA state championships, girls and boys cross country, girls and boys track, girls basketball, soccer, 2 academic state athletic championships, 2 POM state championships, 2 runner-up state championships, and I could go on, and I was going to tell you all of the middle school, but she's dinging my bell, so I'm going to quit. We have our several coaches of the year. All of that to say, we are very lucky and very proud to be a part of Deer Creek, and I will welcome the next presenter. Thank you very much.